Hello everyone, I'm that guy with a different opinion. I do video reviews that contradict the norm. Now today I'm here to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, the majority of the reviews for this have either been it was pretty disappointing or it was just okay. I mean, most of the reviews haven't really been too good. I personally loved this movie. However, before I really get into that, I do understand where a lot of this criticism is coming from. You know, the story really wasn't that great. I mean, yeah, it has its moments, but overall it was just kind of okay. The villains were especially disappointing. Electro was pretty flat, not very interesting. Rhino and Green Goblin were both only in it for like 2 minutes each. They were hardly even used. And even then, even when they were used, they weren't very interesting. And I found it to be very ironic because I thought Harry Osborn was kind of interesting, but as soon as he becomes Green Goblin, it's like, yeah, all his personality just completely went away. And in a Spider-Man film, you know, Spider-Man is one of those characters where he's really well known for having great villains. So the fact that they dropped the ball on all three of these, yeah, I understand why people are disappointed. However, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is some really great stuff in here. One is, I thought it was very funny. You know, Spider-Man, he's a very funny and very witty character, and they completely take advantage of that. There's some really great comedy. Most of it's clever comedy too, which you don't see too often, so I really like that. Another thing is Peter Parker and Gwen Stacy. Now, when it comes to on-screen couples, especially in superhero movies, they're usually either just kissing and fondling each other the whole time, or they're fighting the whole time. It's very rare that you'll see an on-screen couple like really just talk to each other and have good chemistry just in their conversations. These two have that. The way they like goof around with each other and the way they look at each other, they have really great chemistry together and they're really fun to watch. I thought that in the first one. I think they do even better this time around. And again, it's a very rare thing that you see an on-screen couple have this type of chemistry. Again, especially in a superhero movie. So I really like that too. But the biggest thing, and sadly the thing I haven't heard anybody talk about, is Spider-Man himself. And yes, I do know pretty much everyone loves Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, before I watched this movie, if you were to ask me, who do you think is the best example of who and what a superhero should be, I would have told you Superman or Captain America. Simply because, I mean, not because they're like the best or the most interesting characters, but because if there were real life superheroes, that's the way we would want them to be. Because both those guys, they're extremely noble, they're extremely heartfelt, and they're just overall just so genuinely good. That's what we would want in a real life superhero. The only downside to these characters is the whole lawful good thing does make them a little boring. Now, I don't think they're as boring as most people make them out to be, but I will admit they're not as interesting as a lot of the other superhero characters. But in this movie, Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield, because I really think it's a collaboration here, they managed to make Spider-Man just as heartfelt and just as noble as someone like Superman and Captain America, but at the same time, he's still Spider-Man. He's still funny. He's still witty. He's still clever. He's still a little bit arrogant. He's still very relatable. He's still very likable. He's still a fun, interesting character. And I've never seen that before. I've never seen them have a character be so genuinely good and so interesting at the same time. For those of you who have seen the movie and you don't know what I'm talking about with the whole lawful good thing, there's a couple scenes in the movie. I'm just going to pick out one. For those of you who haven't seen the movie, don't worry, it's not a major story plot. It's not really going to spoil anything for you. It's just a really little thing. But there's this one scene where this kid's walking home from school and these bullies start giving him a hard time and the bullies wreck his science project. And then Spider-Man comes by and all the bullies run away. And then Spider-Man, not Peter Parker, he's actually in the Spider-Man costume and everything, Spider-Man actually takes the time to help this little kid put his science project back together, and then he tells the little kid, you know what, I'm going to walk you home. And then he walks with the kid and just talks with him, and he's like, hey, what's your name? And I don't remember what the little kid's name was, but then he's like, hey, I'm Spider-Man. You know, and he was just so genuine about it, and he's just such a good guy. But at the same time, he's still very interesting. And I've never seen that in a movie before, so kudos to them. And I really like that for two reasons. One is because by adding that nobility and that just genuine goodness, I think it makes him a more developed character, and I think it makes him a better superhero. But the biggest reason is because all these superhero movies nowadays, they're all about special effects and action and buildings crumbling and all this other stuff. And that's not really what superhero movies are supposed to be about. It's supposed to be about helping people. And yeah, sometimes, there are big threats that require big action. And that's fine, but sometimes helping people, can be really simple. And I love the fact that this film reminds us that you don't always have to face some supervillain who's bent on world domination in order to be somebody's hero. Because that is what superhero movies are supposed to be about. And I absolutely love this movie for remembering that. And I think the reason why it's flown over so many people's heads is because it's been a very long time since a superhero movie has really been about helping people. And again, I know people are going to try to fight me on this. They're going to say, oh, well, while they're doing all that fighting in action, it's to stop the bad guy. It's to save the world, which ultimately helps people. Which, yes, that is true, but the helping people isn't really the focus of the story. The focus is on the fighting and the action. The fact that it's saving lives just kind of comes secondary. In this one, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the action was secondary, and the main focus and the main emphasis was on Spider-Man just helping people. So for those of you out there who have already seen The Amazing Spider-Man 2, hopefully this review will help you enjoy it a little bit more. And for those of you who haven't seen it, you really should check it out. Just don't expect a great movie. Again, it's not a great movie, but it is very funny, and it is a great example of what a superhero and a superhero movie should be.